Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know it's summertime, so there's a lot going on. So we appreciate you taking your time to spend the evening with our incredible guest. My name is Kristen Bedard, and I'm one of the co-leads of PA Unplugged. The PA Unplugged greenhouse, this idea really came about as we wanted to create a space for cultivation. So ideas, community, and connection and that we want a place where energy would build, advocacy grows, ideas take root, and people work side by side to bring something new to life. And tonight is a special greenhouse as we're co-hosting this with our dear friends and mentors, Distraction Free Schools Policy Project. For those who are joining us for the first time, PA Unplugged is a statewide coalition with a mission to restore real-world connection and build stronger communities by advocating for safe and intentional use of technology. And Distraction Free Schools Policy Project is a joint initiative between the Becca Schmiel Foundation and Smartphone Free Childhood US. It is a national coalition of parents, educators, and school administrators united in calling for legislative action and policy changes to address the overuse of smartphones, social media, and school tech in our nation's schools. They mobilize and train state-based coalitions across the country to advocate for distraction-free schools. And PA Unplugged is one of these coalitions. And I say this all the time, but I want to reiterate, if you have been following our coalition's work in the past year, specifically around our advocacy in Harrisburg for phone-free schools, we would be nowhere without the help and mentorship of Distraction Free Schools Policy Project. So I always want to let everybody know. And if you're new to this type of advocacy and you're from a different state, absolutely start to connect with them. They will change your world. So we will add some links in the chat to learn more about that organization. And if you're in Pennsylvania and you would like to join PA Unplugged, either as an advocate or a supporter, we'd love to add you to our quickly growing group of over 5,000 friends in Pennsylvania. I'll now pass this along to Alex to introduce our guest.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Becker. I live in the Philadelphia area. I'm another co-lead of PA Unplugged. We are so pleased to welcome tonight Mr. Jason Bing and Dr. Greg Taranto to our third PA Greenhouse to discuss EdTech reform in action. So I'll introduce Mr. Bing first. So Jason Bing began his career as a teacher in North Plainfield before moving into leadership roles in Phillipsburg and Great Meadows Regional School Districts, where he became one of the youngest superintendents in New Jersey at the time. He later served as deputy superintendent in a large New Jersey school district supporting more than 30,000 students. He is an Aspen Institute Workforce Development Fellow and a member of the New Jersey Department of Education's Career and Technical Education Advisory Council. And Dr. Greg Taranto joined Canon McMillan School District in 1999 as a student teacher and then as a middle school science teacher. He initially worked in exercise science and cardiac rehabilitation before moving into education. He served as the Canon Mac Middle School principal from 2005 to 2022. And beyond his administrative roles, Dr. Taranto also contributes to educational research and literature with over 25 publications on education and leadership. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about just briefly, the changes that have happened at these two school districts over the past year or so. So let's talk first about Canon Mac. So in April, Canon Mac announced that starting next year, grades K through 2 will be a Chromebook-free learning environment. This shift for K to 2 is part of a larger ongoing effort across the district to reevaluate and reduce excessive screen time at all grade levels. In addition to reducing screen time, the K to 6 program will be revisiting EdTech programs such as Reflex Math, IXL, etc. And these are that are designed to gamify learning, which often translate to quick, fast bursts of information and token digital rewards. Now let's talk about South Orange Maplewood, where Mr. Bing is superintendent. So they are transitioning away from the one-to-one device model at the elementary level. Devices will now be managed via classroom carts to ensure intentional teacher-led integration. They're also currently evaluating a similar shift for their middle schools. And for the 27-28 school year, middle school grades will transition to classroom cart storage. And YouTube will no longer be available for grades pre-K to 5, and internet usage for all pre-K to 8 students will be tailored to include only those sites essential to curriculum. So the reason we ask these two superintendents to join us this evening is because they are leaders in EdTech reform, and they have been and continue to make changes in their districts by reading the research, talking to teachers and listening to the community and doing what we now know is best for kids. Technology is constantly changing, but something that we always say, and this is something that our colleague Katie Tallarico says all the time, technology changes, but what kids need for healthy development does not. So many of you across the country are struggling in ongoing discussions and advocacy with your local school boards and school administrators. We joke slash cry a lot at PA Unplugged that this work is a slow burn, which it is. But we hope that by hearing from these two district leaders, you leave feeling inspired and hopeful that change will also be possible in your district. So, why don't we kick it off with the first question? So I'll pose the question, I'll ask both of you to respond. Please give us just a little bit history about how you came to see this as a necessary shift for your district. Was there an aha moment? Did you have any specific research that really stood out to you to make these changes? I'll ask Dr. Taranto to be the first.
All right, thank you, Alex. I wouldn't say there was necessarily an aha moment. It's been a gradual work up to this point, quite honestly. When we put that information out in April, it was pretty much the definitive stamp to let the community know that this is what we're doing. Kind of honestly send a message that we've worked to this point, and we know for a fact that we don't have to have those screens in those younger classrooms, and we're going to be reducing those continually beyond second grade as well. But what I would say is, we're focused on the research, focused on, how do kids best learn, understanding brain development and science of learning. And when you look at the research, and you don't have to look at individual research studies, you could look at meta-analyses of many research studies in one spot to identify, okay, what are best instructional practices. So if you look at those best instructional practices and you look at those research studies, what you don't see in any of those research studies is putting a child in front of a program, a computer program or a Chromebook, and finding best results there. What it tells you is the number one determining factor of student achievement, in school factor here, not out of school factors because they're influential in this. But if you look at just in school factors, it's the teacher, time and time again. So if the teacher is the number one influence of student achievement in the school, why are we doing things to take the teacher away from the kid? That student needs to be with the teacher as much as possible. So at our school district, our motto is every day counts. And what that means is maximizing the time, that instructional time with our students as much as possible, maximizing the time we have with students. Because quite honestly, we say we have 180 school days in a year. But the reality is, do you really have 180 school days? We have student absences, we have teacher absences, you have a class party, you have some field trips. You're probably only talking about 165 days of solid learning going on. That means 200 days a year. 200 days a year, the kids aren't learning. So you better maximize the time and lean to what is the best practice and what does the research say as far as how kids learn. And none of it's going to point to placing a child in front of a computer program. That's not going to ever be better than the student interaction with each other and with the teacher.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on what Greg said. The school year flies. I mean, that's just the reality. And if you talk to these kids and you see the increase in the volume of information that these kids are taking in, that makes this world move by even faster. I mean, when you're taking in that much information, that car is in fifth gear and you're going 200 miles an hour. You don't have time to stop and smell the roses, as they say. So I think, balancing that use of technology goes a long way in regards to slowing things down and having the ability to go in depth more, whether that's standards, content, and just as Greg said, we're a big John Hattie district. I don't see any research, and John's done a lot, that a Chromebook in front of a student is going to accelerate learning or close gaps significantly. So, for me, and we discussed this previously, we have a really strong grassroots organization in our district, Team Unscreen. And we started with their Wait Until 8 initiative, trying to sign up as many families as humanly possible. And then we started to broach some larger challenges in the district. And I also personally have a middle school daughter and have noticed that smartphone is a fifth appendage. And I have been witness to the sleep deprivation. I have been witness to the social comparison that really impacts her self-esteem. So yeah, we're both feet on the ground running to see what we can do in regards to closing the gap between being a human and living on a screen.
Before we move on to, the next thing we wanted to talk about was just awareness for the community and the faculty and implementation and rollout. But really quickly, Mr. Bing, so just to confirm that I understood what you said. So the school district, did they approach the school district about working directly with you to try to encourage a wait until eighth sign up and movement in the community?
Yeah, we were lucky enough to have one of my board members be part of the group. So
Hmm.
I'm lucky enough to have a very supportive board in regards to this issue. So it was really a natural transition. We had a meeting immediately. I read what they're all about. And we just clicked. A lot of our ideas from the senior leadership team side of things really matched quite well with many of the things Team Unscreen was saying. So we would meet frequently, and we started to develop a short-term and long-term plan.
And
That's incredible.
when did you first start working together, Team Unscreen?
I've been in this district for about finishing up 2 years. I would say within my first 2 months in the district. And I'm sure Greg could attest to this. So usually you start getting calls in regards to, different grassroots organizations in town, nonprofit organizations, parent groups. So I was meeting with a lot of them, and Team Unscreen and our administrative team just clicked. And the more I got to know our community, the more I realized that, yeah, this is something we really should push instead of just standing still and waiting.
That's amazing.
We were
Um,
our state's also banned smartphone usage last year. So we tried to get ahead of that, and we partnered with UNC and Rutgers, which is a university less than 30 minutes from us, around a 4-year study around the impacts of smartphones on learning. So Chromebooks just really seeped its way into the discussion as well. Once we were, about 4 months into that study, what about screen time? What about screen time on Chromebooks? It really started to elevate into that area.
Wonderful. Oh, I see someone has raised their hand. We're gonna have time for Q&A at the end. If you do have questions, please put them in. You can enter them. We're definitely planning to save time for that at the end. We are hoping to make progress through a ton of questions. We're probably not gonna have time for them all, but if we could save all of the audience questions for the end, that would be awesome. I had one thing I wanted to actually ask Dr. Taranto. Earlier, I know Mr. Bing mentioned that this is the one issue in his community that everyone is for, everyone is supporting. What was it like in your district in Canon Mac, Dr. Taranto? Was there pushback to this? Was there a specific group of folks that you had to convince, or was there any educating that you felt like was really incumbent on the administration to do in it, like as you were rolling out these changes?
No, it was overwhelmingly positive. But again, it's been a kind of a slow walk to this point. It's just something that I've presented on the last few years as far as brain influences. I hit on social media, I hit on screen time during that time. So speaking to our parent groups, it's been done for a number of years now. So no, it wasn't. I don't think it was a surprise to our community or at all. I got zero, which is never really happens, but zero pushback whatsoever. Super supportive school board. Our school board super supportive. Actually, my board president's attending tonight, Ms. Gump, And very she and Vice President very supportive of what we're doing. But they're learning leaders too. They're not just sitting back. They're wanting to learn too. So when we're doing things, wanting to know why, but not a surprise at all, and very positive response. I mean, the news showed up, and which kind of caught me off guard, but um, it was a good experience. Yeah.
Great to hear.
You want me to go next, Alex, with the next
Yeah.
question? Okay. And so it's great to hear that most parents in the community had good feedback. And obviously, Mr. Bing, you were working with your parent community on this from the beginning. When it comes to just preparing the staff and the faculty on this, because we always say, we can't expect every single educator to know all of this research without actually, what I mean? There's a lot to take in, and you have to want to look into it and read it. And teachers are so busy and they have big jobs. So what happened behind the scenes to also get faculty on the same page? Whoever wants to go first.
So we did a couple book studies, including Hattie's Anxious Generation and also Stolen Focus by Hari. We also we're a survey heavy district, so we surveyed our staff, broke it up by K to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12, and really did an intentional and detailed survey that really had questions that were specific to technology use, so we can get their feedback on the issue, and also had some small focus groups as well with students and staff.
Yeah, presentations, pushing out information out to really making sure our principals understood where we're coming from, so then they could be learning leaders in their building. So making sure our principals are educated on why we're doing this and the importance of it, but also the whole faculty as well, and staff. So again, wasn't a surprise when we said we're doing this and made the announcement. They have to be on board and educated before you make these kind of big decisions, for sure. And there's dependence there too that we have to try to break too. And just like parents become dependent on technology being the pacifier, it's true for teachers too, because as soon as you stick that child in front of a screen, it pacifies them and they're quiet. There's no behavior issues, right? So it's trying to break that cycle. And again, we can only control what we can control with there's this excessive screen time occurring outside our school. We can't control that. We can control what occurs in our schools, and trying to model that. And schools are often looked at as the leaders in the community. So that's what we're doing here. We're trying to lead to the community, to educate the community of this is the best approach and this is the healthiest approach for children.
Yeah, I think the adults are a little tougher than the kids. I'll have a room full of 100 people shaking their head yes while they're on their smartphone, answering emails from work. So that modeling part of it is really where the community needs to step in. And when we talk about collaborative inquiry, to me, that's, we need to exemplify that at home and also in school. And it's tough. It's tough for me. It's a struggle, but I think it's something our kids have to see us doing, putting down that phone, taking a digital Sabbath, whatever you choose to do.
Yes, 100%. I would put myself in that category too. Modeling is critical and it's hard. I would love to talk about some specific platforms with you both. And I'd like to start with Mr. Bing. Your letter that you released to your school district explicitly talked about restricting access to YouTube. What led you to that decision? It is incredible to many parents on this webinar how resistant some school districts are to this type of change specifically.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, and we made this pretty clear, as Greg mentioned, when we talked with our staff, we weren't taking YouTube away from their toolbox.
Right.
We were taking away access to our kids who were in K to 5, and I believe we went to K to 8 now. No one could come up with a legitimate reason for students to have complete free access to YouTube. And, we did a SWOT analysis. No one could come up. That paper was completely empty. So, our teachers still can use it as a toolbox in their toolbox. We did not see a plus or value add of having our kids access it with really all the issues that we currently have with it, and kids getting to sites, kids getting through our walls. And we're talking third graders here. I'm not talking high school. Our third to fifth graders are getting by our walls and getting through to these sites and getting through to these videos that, I have some issues with, our community has some issues with. So I think prohibiting YouTube for our students, to me, was really a first positive move.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And Dr. Taranto, when we spoke with you in April, you spoke about finding a curriculum that has textbook, workbook options, like the physical options for students to engage with print. A lot of pushback that many advocates across the state and country get, especially in secondary grade levels, is that these options no longer exist, or everything is going digital. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you have encountered or any progress you've made there?
Sure, absolutely. So we are traditional textbook, workbook school district, K through 12. So we made a big push for going on 5 years ago now with our new board. They wanted updated curriculum, they wanted updated textbook resources, investments in our academic programming, which we've done a lot of. And we made a point of telling publishers we want hardback only. We want hardback books, we want workbooks. Now that eliminated some publishers, sure, but there are still many options out there. And that's what we've been doing. So if it could be in a hard copy, we're getting it and it's in our kids' hands. And that is the go-to, the first go-to. And again, that's through 12th grade. So it's out there if you want it. The resources there, and you can access quality textbook resources, from science, social studies, mathematics, ELA.
That's great. And I'd like to follow up, and then I will look. Sorry, I'm so excited
You're
to talk
doing
to
a
you.
great
I'm
job. So
taking
I'm
all of the
actually,
questions. I'm going to
I'm
ask
loving
one more.
it.
I'll ask one more, and it'll be Kristen's turn. I want to talk about, and it may be applicable to both of you, but we'll start with Dr. Taranto. I'd love to talk about the plan to revisit the platforms. Well, first, I want to talk about your decision to, limit device use, right, in K to 2, and like really how you made that decision, and then your plans really for revisiting device use in other grade levels, all the way through high school. I would really love to hear about how you're thinking about that. Again, I know, we need to do maybe a little bit at a time. You can't like completely change everything overnight, but I would love to hear about how you're approaching that conversation.
Sure. So yeah, again, K through 2 will be no Chromebooks whatsoever, or screen or iPads. It was very, very, very limited in kindergarten and first grade, quite honestly, in our district already. Again, this is not something overnight. We did have Chrome carts in second grade classrooms, and they'll be gone. They are gone now, actually. Second grade teachers were excited about that. As I walked through schools, they applauded that decision. We eliminated, quite honestly, all EdTech kind of learning platforms. We had utilized some IXL and Reflex Math, or the two big ones we use there. So that's gone through sixth grade. We don't have those platforms, and we won't be using them next year. Again, it's about looking at the research and maximizing the time with the teacher, direct instruction, collaborative learning with our students, student to student. We want to maximize that human-to-human interaction now more than ever. You have with AI now, you're talking about screen time on steroids, right? And now we're fighting that fight. That's a separate fight in itself. But yeah, so we were really never big, especially I was never big on test prep type programs as is. It's always about solid instruction. And then that if you have solid instruction in the classroom, then the test takes care of itself. So a lot of those platforms are test prep type platforms, increase some scores on their state test scores. So that and then everything's gamified now. And we know that gamification is hitting on the same dopamine circuits as their short-term or videos and the social media. So we don't want to exacerbate that issue with those students. They're already coming into school with those attention issues. So it honestly was a no-brainer to do that. And it is a significant reduction, grades 7 through 12. And I got to give kudos to our teachers. I mean, they're doing a lot. If I walk in classrooms, I'm not seeing a lot of kids on Chromebooks. I'm not seeing a lot of kids on screens. Yeah, you may walk into an English class and they're typing an essay, but we're trying to move towards, instead of doing your rough draft on the essay, we want the kids writing that out. We know it's better for learning and understanding. It's harder to, cheat obviously with AI. Write out your rough draft and then maybe type it there. We want really the primary use of technology in our EdTech classrooms where it's really robust. We have great EdTech programs for coding, programming, robotics. That's where we want our tech usage the most in our school district.
Right.
Yeah, for us, that's probably one of our biggest discussion points with our families are the ed tech platforms. We're currently utilizing them for formative assessments, and I'm just going to speak as not only as an old man but also as an elementarist. I was a fourth grade teacher most of my career, and I still remember doing the dibbles, the DRAs, where I had to pull one kid aside and sit with that child for 35 to 40 minutes. To get critical information, and had to do that with every child in a class of 32. By the time I got that information, we were already a month behind in the interventions because I was still assessing students. So for me, I'm kind of right in the middle there. I think technology does have its advantages in regards to formative assessment, real-time feedback, skill gap analysis, things of that nature, small group instruction. But that's really all we're utilizing it for. But I could definitely say that that's our biggest discussion point right now with our community and teachers. Are we going to peel back those platforms completely, or again, just really utilize them for assessments? So that's a big discussion point right now for us.
Just before Kristen goes to the next, could you explain for anyone on the call who doesn't know what the term formative assessment means? Could you just...
Sure, just getting a picture in time where a student is, and then being able to use that information to adjust your instruction, or to implement a multi-tiered system of support, a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 intervention. Our state is a big MTSS state. So we've been putting a lot of time and effort and resources into tier 1 intervention. So that real-time quick data really helps in regards to tier 1. So yeah, I mean, I feel at this point it's beneficial, but we're going to have some more conversations. I think one of the main things we're trying to push is to find that balance. I'm in 2 communities that are a New York City hub. Most of my parents work in the city. Many work for Google. many work for media companies like ESPN and so forth. So they're very knowledgeable of what technology is out there and what's out there for students. So I don't think we're at the point. I don't want to walk back technology completely. I want to find that balance. If I could invent that time machine, I'd probably go back to my prom and really fix that up before I take away any technology. But yeah, we're just trying to find that balance. I think, and as Greg said, it's a slow process and it's a lot of work.
If I could
And
just
a lot of conversation and willing to have the discussion and listen to each other, which I think, the fact that you mentioned that right off the bat, and I think that's what so many parents are up against, is that they go to have a conversation and the conversation, it doesn't happen. And then people just feel not sure what to do, what they can do next.
Well, we're
Because
seeing it.
obviously,
I
go
can't
ahead.
speak for Greg, but I mean, we're seeing it amongst our adults. The idea of civil discourse has totally dissipated.
Mhm.
Most of my parents get their information on Facebook sites, or so we're trying to turn that back currently by working with our parents. We're in the midst of training some of our high school kids to facilitate workshops for our parents around civil discourse and around digital literacy and things of that nature, because we find that our community listens pretty closely to our students. So we're finishing up putting together some workshops done by students, and hopefully those will have an impact for our community.
That's amazing.
If I could just add something, I think a point of stress on school districts, especially now in Pennsylvania. I can't speak for New Jersey, but it's probably. Do you do online? Is your testing online?
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's a big issue as well.
Yeah. So we just moved to mandated online testing in Pennsylvania. It was optional last few years. They mandated it this year. And if you're a school district or you're a superintendent or you have or a school board that's hyper focused on test scores, which fortunately my community is not, they understand that that's a data point. Um, then that's the added pressure there because our teachers have pressure, and we don't put a lot of emphasis on the PSSA. It's about solid instruction all year. Let the scores fall where they at, as long as you're teaching and maximizing teaching and doing what you're supposed to be doing. But now online testing, so now we're saying we're reducing screen time, we're reducing Chromebooks, but then the state's saying, hey, guess what? For 3 weeks in April, you got to put your students on this Chromebook, and they got to type up essays that they've never done before. It's absurd to put a third grader on a Chromebook and ask them to type an essay. So from a parent advocacy point, what we can really need help with is your voice with our state legislators because it's absolutely absurd. And going around and seeing the problems we had with the technology going down on a state level, and seeing these third graders very upset because they have to try to type these essays out or do their math on a Chromebook is craziness. And we looked at our scores, preliminary scores, and they're down, which we expected from previous years, but we refuse to give up instructional time just to put them on the Chromebook so they can prep for a test. We already lose a lot of testing, a lot of instructional time for state testing. I'm not going to put kids on there just to put kids on there and lose even more. So we could definitely use advocacy in that area to help us out because I would love to go back to a paper test where it's just best for kids, especially at those younger grades. If you want to do online testing, start in seventh grade, go for it. But I think through sixth grade should be paper and pencil.
Yeah, New Jersey is a high stakes testing state. Uh, that state assessment means a lot. When you walk into a real estate office, they will have all the scores pasted on the wall. We're a high stakes testing state, but as Greg noted, it's an issue. I mean, and they're using the same technology that a lot of these ed tech platforms. We just moved to an adaptive online state assessment that I believe about 25 or 30 states are currently utilizing. New Jersey just moved to it this year. So now that our state assessment is using the same technology as many of these ed tech platforms that we just discussed.
Well,
Yes.
Mr. Bing, I'm a realtor, and so I always not, I feel that Ken and Mac, at least if you're coming to the Pittsburgh area, you have a really great leader there. So anybody that might be moving to Pittsburgh, let me know. Um, I want to talk a little bit about um, really just hearing from, well, first up, we did have one question that I do want to answer immediately, and I meant to ask you both this at the beginning, but if you can just quickly share how large your school districts are, how many students and how many buildings per, like per level. Mr. Bing, if you want to go first.
Sure. We're at about
Thanks.
7,100 students, about 13 buildings. We're pre-K through 12 district, large um, students with disabilities population. We're at about 22%. And as noted, we're in the hub of Manhattan. We're about a 30-minute train ride to the city. Very diverse, two towns that are very diverse.
We are around 5,600 students, five elementaries, two intermediates, that's five grades, 5 and 6, one middle school, one high school. Our low SES is around 30%, and our special ed population is 15%. We have a wide, diverse district as well, as from very low SES to very high income, and one of the fastest growing school districts on this side of the state.
Great. So I want to talk a little bit more and just hear from you about how your schools handle uh, Chromebooks going home, or what the evolution has been with that. Because I think when we talk to parents who are starting we call it their advocacy journey around this issue, we created a guide of choose your own adventure advocacy guide. And one of the things that we tell people that, start here, start with just at least trying to get the devices to stay at school so that it's not coming into the home, because maybe it's not a problem in your home since you're the one doing the advocacy. You probably already have certain rules in your house or boundaries, but knowing that it is going into a lot of other homes with parents that didn't ask for it, parents that might not be as present in the evening, etc. And so we'd love to hear more about how you're handling that. And along with that, when you did make a shift or transition, what that meant for curriculum, teachers, homework, etc.
Our for K through 8 devices don't go home or have never gone home. So it's just high school, and that
Oh, wow.
started about 4 years ago, where we went to one for the high school. So our Chromebooks stay at school and have and will continue to stay at school for those grade levels. Um, 1-to-1 for the high school will continue next year, and we'll continue to revisit to see if that's something we're going to continue or not. But for next year, they're still going home for high school. But as far as homework, again, because we're workbooks and textbooks, I mean, almost all the homework is quite honestly in those traditional formats for our students. High school may be a little bit different, slightly using a learning management system, but most of our homework is traditional and not delivered via digital means.
Yeah, on our end, we were a heavy Canvas district, the learning management platform system. So we just eliminated that from the middle school. It's now only at the high school. So as Greg said, much of their work is still done on Canvas at the high school level. We are moving our middle school students away from that. So Chromebooks will be taken home a lot less. We are moving to carts at the middle school level. And we are by the start of next year, we should at K-5 be totally carts and peeled away from the one-to-one at the pre-K-5 level. So it's just trying to find the sweet spot with our teachers. And to be honest, we didn't get the most pushback we got in regards to Canvas was at the high school level. And as Greg noted, we had some conversations and made a decision to keep it for next year, and then we'll revisit and see where we want to go. I think what also comes into play is that next step in life, whether that's if they're going to university or college. I believe we're at about 99% of the colleges are using something like Canvas. So yeah, it's tricky, but the conversations help.
I'd actually love, someone just put a question in the chat that I think is really relevant. I'd love to ask it now. When you mentioned, Mr. Bing, that you moved away from Canvas in the middle school, it sounds like you're still using it at the high school level. Was there any sort of budgetary concern or issue like breaking? I don't know that you broke a contract, but the contract changed, right? If you moved away from middle school, maybe you could just talk a little bit about what that looked like. Were there any concerns as you kind of began to unwind um, from the one-to-one model back to cart model and away from Canvas?
Yeah, we are lucky enough to have one of the executives of Canvas live in our town. So we've had many deep discussions with him, and he's the first to admit that his third grader gets around our firewall and tells us how he does it. I get emails from him all the time. So part of it was budgetary. If you read the headlines, New Jersey is having some funding issues. And we made that very clear to them. In Canvas, you really can't break out or segment. And the other side of it was us trying to balance technology. To me, it was a 50-50. He was great. Really, we learned a lot from him. We're going to continue the conversations and see where our high school staff wants to go. Because I think, as Greg noted, you've got programs like AP that are integrated and a lot of other programs that these students are taking for college and university that require a one-to-one, to be honest with you, at the high school level. So, I'm hoping to see some change at the university college level. I'm not going to hold my breath. I think they are the only institution that actually moves slower than public education K-12 or the college and universities. But I would love to see them do something in regards to overusage and screen time.
I'll give you some hope there, Jason. I play pickleball with a professor at Duquesne University, and he said next year he's not allowing any laptops whatsoever in his classroom.
Oh, that's incredible.
So I was really excited to hear that.
One class at a time. I'll take it.
Yeah, I
But
will. I've also heard that from many professors at various institutions. Again, it's an individual level, but saying, like, we're done, we're going to Blue Books, we're doing oral presentations, we're not doing anymore. I do think the rapid proliferation and expansion of AI has probably forced their hand. Are you seeing that as well? I'm curious as it relates to AI. Do you feel like the way that AI has changed and the pace has also changed the pace of the conversation in your districts?
We are trying not to let the pace of AI drive our actions. We have a action committee together as a community. We have teachers, community members, and so forth on that committee. We've met about 3 times so far. Our plan is really to come up with some standard operating procedures. I think one of the first things my tech director and myself said is we're not looking to reinvent the wheel here. I'm all good with borrowing and stealing from districts or colleges, universities, or companies that have done good work around this already. So we're in the exploration stage right now. We're really looking what other districts have done, and then really trying to establish a framework that will turn into a standard operating procedure.
How are you guys approaching AI, Dr. Taranto, if at all?
I would say we're in that same kind of stage, but quite honestly, trying to, I've attended a lot of different webinars and reading and look at studies. And there's nothing convincing so far that AI has to be or should be integrated in the core classrooms. And if you lean towards research, learning science, how do we learn? How do humans learn? And you have to go through a process called productive struggle. If you don't go through productive struggle, you don't learn. So, okay, AI is going to be here. We understand it's here. It's never going to go away. And there is a place for AI, and it's going to make people efficient, and people with skill sets and expertise absolutely utilize AI. However, you don't want AI to make learning easier if you're not going through productive struggle. Productive struggle creates schema in your brain, so you start learning. That literally you have axons growing towards each other. Your body will respond to that struggle and will respond appropriately by growing knowledge and making connections. And the analogy I always use is exercising. If you want to grow your muscles, okay, you have to lift a weight that produces that productive struggle. It can't be too heavy. It can't be too light. If it's too light and I just do 30, 40, 50 reps, my body's not going to respond to it. But if I produce the right amount of stress to my muscle, your body, your biology will say, I didn't like that stress. I'm going to respond to it by growing more muscle. So the next time you stress me out, I'm going to respond appropriately. It's not going to be as stressful. Your brain works the same way. You go through flashcards, right? You're stressed out because you don't know the answers, but you keep going through it. What happens is your brain, your axons start to grow, and you start making connections, you start learning. AI eliminates and offboards your thinking completely. You do not have to think, you become passive. And if information is passively going through your brain, you're not actually engaging with it, you will not learn it. And that's not a place we want our kids. So we have to be very cautious and protective because no one else is doing that. EdTech, big tech is not looking out for your children. They are looking to make as much money as possible. People have to realize that. So we have to understand that we're the ones kind of protecting our kids, understand we're the experts here that understand how people learn, and it's not going to be through AI.
Yeah, I think that idea of how technology is so severely undercutting effort it is really the big impact, to be honest with you. Many of these students, effort isn't, effort's learned. Effort's learned through trying and failing. And it's not there anymore. And that's tough. That's difficult. Having young children understand effort, understanding the pros of effort is vitally important. And we're seeing that technology is, and as Greg noted, is just undercutting it. I think what Greg is doing, what some other districts are doing in regards to rolling back what happened from the pandemic and really trying to balance use of technology is vital.
Humans naturally will take the easy way. It's natural. So we can't expect kids to be disciplined, so disciplined that they're not going to utilize something that's going to make it easier. However, if you continuously take that easy way, that's naturally going against our biology, which wants to be productive, wants to be challenged, wants to do something. If you're just sitting there passively consuming, you're just going to go in a state of, mental health state, depression, anxiety. I mean, you just name it. That's what we're seeing right now. It's because we're just consuming massive amounts of information, not really processing or engaging with it, just taking in. And Jason's right. We're just trying to swing that pendulum back to center here because it's too extreme. Just bring this back to center. That's all we're asking to do.
And the ed tech companies, the social media platforms are more than willing to fill that gap. They are more than willing to jump into that hole and fill that for kids. So, on our end, as adults, we have to create a better environment, a better ecosystem. And that's not only from, urban, suburban development in regards to more playgrounds, more access to outside play, better school recess opportunities, things of that nature. We need to create that environment for kids so they're not automatically going to technology to fill that gap.
You only have so much attention, and ed tech, big tech, same thing, wants that attention. It wants to monopolize the attention of every child, every human, period. That's how they make money. And I think Jason could speak to this too. It dominates our field. If you go to a conference, if you go to a publication, it is ed tech, and there's this little bit sliver over here of non-ed tech. And if you're not talking ed tech, they don't want to hear from you.
There is no pedagogy. It has
anymore
pedagogy right out. My closet is now full of tote bags from ed tech companies.
Yep.
And so that's why it's refreshing to hear Greg talk about pedagogy in regards to, best practices and what effective instruction looks like, which, that's our focus with our teachers. We need more discussion within the education field around pedagogy and what really works, because that hasn't changed.
No, nothing shows it has. It's refreshing to hear from you too, Jason. And I think I've shared this with Kristen the last time we talked. I've submitted presentations to our National Superintendent Association, Principal Associations, Influences in Brain Health presentation that my parent groups love to hear. It's rejected. So then I'll go see what's on, what did they accept? And what is it, Jason? It's all ed tech. I'm not talking ed tech. I'm actually talking the opposite. They don't want to hear from me. Where's the money? Where's the sponsors? It's coming from ed tech. They know who to reach. They know who to influence, which are the leaders, administrators, and that's where they're at constantly. And now I know Jason can say, probably confirm this too. My inbox every day, email box every day. It's one platform after another, constantly.
It's big business. It's big business, and that's what it's become. And I really think it's going to take educators who are in the classroom, principals, superintendents, to really start pivoting and moving. As Greg said, it's going to take a while. It's like turning the Titanic, but I think it's doable.
So one more question that is connected to that. You guys really just led us into us wanting to ask this, and then we'll go into audience Q&A. But so clearly, you guys go to these conferences, you get the solicitation emails from the companies, and you understand that it's not necessarily the best thing for kids. And Mr. Bing, to your point, like assessment, there's a time and a place, and it's finding this balance. For parents who are doing this reading and feel really strongly about this, and then doing a really great job at home, but then their kids are in school and their kindergartner is spending a half an hour a day playing a math game, or they're bringing the iPad home to have homework and 20 minutes of a math game at night, examples like that, which we do hear a lot of. And they do go to their principal, the teacher, the principal, maybe the superintendent, director of technology, and they're really just completely there is no engagement, because what we hear a lot is that parents is that there are a lot of administrations that have completely bought into this big business of ed tech. And I would love to know, just from your perspective, like, do you have any thoughts, advice for these groups of parents that want to continue working with their districts and keep trying when they feel that there's just completely different viewpoints?
I mean, on our end, we do a lot of work around know your community, right? So we talk to our parents all the time around, if you're arranging a play date, ask that parent, will my child have access to technology, or are they playing? We talk about collective community, and it's going to take the adults speaking to each other and forming these small pockets of communities where I know I'm bringing my daughter over to a house that the children aren't just going to be on iPads all the time. I'm talking to my neighbor and they're telling me, yeah, we're going to do this, this, and this. Kids are going to be playing outside. That sort of socializing is vitally important. So we try to create these small communities in school, and then hopefully they will carry out of school. Whether it's makerspace events or small events that bring elementary parents together or bring middle school parents together, so they at least get to know each other, and better understand when their students are out of school, what they might be doing together. So, it's educating our adults, providing some options for our adults. We are currently hearing from a few of our parents around opting out. That's very new to our district right now. I think I received our first public speak on that about 3 months ago. So that's a topic that was new to us, and we plan on having some town halls and discussions around what that looks like, what the impact on a teacher is. We all know a teacher's day is already insanity. It's one of the most difficult jobs in the world. So that just came over our radar over the last couple months. So we're having some discussions around that with our parents. But I think community is really important in all this.
I would, Jason mentioned John Hattie as a resource for easy research to go to, meta-analyses. So I just put that in the chat too, Hattie, but also Ed Rosenshine actually is my favorite to go to. And as parents, if you kind of bring up that up or bring up some of their articles, it's not going to point towards ed tech. So I guess the conversation, a civil conversation with your educational leaders, your principals, your superintendents, where these parents are at, is why are we doing this? Like, here's what the research says. Like, do you have independent peer-reviewed research that shows that putting a child on this program, not IXL's research, quote unquote, but actually independent research says that is beneficial or that's going to result in exponential amount of learning. So like kind of unfortunately, maybe the parents have to educate the educators in that circumstance.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I don't think there's any district or building leader that doesn't believe in advocacy, right? You have to advocate for your child. And if that's around technology, then that's what you need to do. And I can guarantee there's one, two, three other parents that are in that same boat. And all you really need to do is row together and you'll be heard. That's the bottom line of it. That's how most of these initiatives or get started. It's a small group of parents that bring something to our attention and start the conversation.
Thank you. Question about from Lucy Lee. Thank you for joining us from Colorado, Lucy. Question about timing changes. In Lucy's Northern Colorado district, it seems like they're interested in rolling back device usage, but they're currently focused on looming school closures and consolidations. I know that's an issue for many school districts right now. I know it's an issue in Philadelphia.
In Pittsburgh.
And Pittsburgh. So I'm curious, what your perspective is there, if you have one.
Or are issues like that a reason to not have parents advocate for the changes of going to a cart model? Or because I think we don't know like the operational changes that have to happen. I mean, we can imagine it, but I think we hear from parents, like specifically in PA, Philly, and Pittsburgh, that they are going through these school closures right now, and they're hesitant to even bring this up. But do you feel that it is something that they should just pause on because it requires such a big shift internally?
I think there's so many ancillary things in our field right now and in our business that we need to remind ourselves that we're about students and student achievement. My board will hear this from me all the time. We need to get back to student achievement. We need to get back to student achievement. We need to get back to talking about student achievement. We don't have those conversations nearly enough. We don't have those pedagogy conversations nearly enough. We talk about all the things that you just said that are happening, which are all relevant and very important. However, the mission of any school district is student achievement. It's the student, the whole child. So we try to steer conversations, especially when we're in public, back to that whole child and the student.
I mean, scaling back this could save districts money, or it could cost more money. It depends. If they're all digital, if all their textbooks are digital, it's going to cost money. So it's we have a 5-year plan in our school district. We're going to year 2. Talk to your superintendents like, okay, if we can't do this next year because we're all digital in our textbooks, can we start phasing this? Okay, our math textbooks are up next year. Can we go hardback next year? The year after that, ELA, can we move to hardback? Like, what's the plan? Can we phase this? I think if parents would be satisfied with some kind of plan, if it in that regard, if you're just saying no, we can't do it, I think that's a different story, but you have to explain why and take it one year at a time to move that point. If you have textbooks and hardback workbooks already, I think you could do it quicker, and you could probably see a cost savings because for us, I know we don't have to worry about Chromebooks for K through 2 now. There's gonna be a savings there naturally. It's not the reason why we did it, but it's a nice bonus.
And I think, as Greg noted, getting the why out there is pretty important to your narrative, right? Showing folks data and why you're doing something is great, but if that data doesn't have a narrative or a story to it with a why, you're just spinning your wheels.
Mm. I want to follow up on what you just mentioned, Dr. Taranto. I think that's something that is a big part of the conversation. That's something that is discussed a lot, the cost differential. Well, first it's, are there even textbooks anymore? And then it's, well, what is the cost looking like? I really appreciate the approach you're sharing. Let's do this in phases and in curriculum cycles. I'm curious, is it a huge difference? Like, is it when you're saying, yeah, if you're all digital, it's going to be more expensive? Can you share any insight into like how big of a difference this could be for districts? I know it's probably really hard to
Yeah.
quantify, but do you have like any insight you can share?
There's not much of a difference between if you go all digital versus hardback, quite honestly. What I'm saying is if you just bought
Ah,
usually 5, 6 years into a textbook series, let's say social studies, and we're only in year one of it, you can't expect the school district then to turn around in year two and say, hey, now we're going to buy hardback. We already bought 6 years of digital licenses. So I think that's where you have to look at where are we at in the cycle and then start phasing this in. That's where the cost could be. But if you're looking at is there a savings between all digital licenses and hardbacks? There really isn't much. The textbook companies want to make as much money as possible. And I know for our experience, there wasn't much of a difference when we saw that. And so uh, I think that answers your question, right?
yes, it does. And thank you, Amy, joining us from Kansas, and thank you for your work in Kansas, Amy. Been reading about you in the press. Thank you. Okay, Kristen, you take the next question, please.
Or should I just pick one?
Yeah.
Um, I there's so many good ones. So, um, let's see. I Jordan asked one that I think is interesting, especially for if there's people here that are more working at like a state coalition level too. She asked, could you talk about what your state superintendent organizations, the teacher unions, principal associations, et cetera, are hearing about the parent movement to push back against so much ed tech in the classroom. It has such a financial influence. So wondering if you're starting to hear something. Like, for example, for the group here listening in Pennsylvania, for example, the Pennsylvania State Teachers Association was not able to actually come out with an opinion on bell-to-bell phone-free schools because they needed legislation to actually talk about it first. So, and then when that was introduced, they were able to talk about it, and then they came out in support of it in the fall. So that's how it works in Pennsylvania. But I'm just so if you two can share anything, but then not even just with like your teachers unions, but all the influential organizations. I think this is interesting because we know that they do have so much sway, especially with legislators.
Uh, Go
We've
ahead,
got
Jason.
pretty good buy-in from our associations and our political organizations in New Jersey. I was previous to this position, I was a county superintendent in New York State. So I was in Albany quite a lot in the Capitol building, and that's a whole different animal. Trying to get legislation passed, as you just noted, it takes some time. It takes a lot of advocacy. We encourage our parents we have a list on our website of who to contact. Who should you reach out to in regards to different topics and items? But we have not received a lot of pushback from our NJEA, our New Jersey Education Association, or our administrative organizations. They've been pretty supportive along this work.
I mean, we're in a kind of minority right now, kind of leading the way on this initiative in Western Pennsylvania, quite honestly. Not receiving any pushback necessarily, but also not seeing a lot of schools kind of go in this direction, the districts. I am hearing things of, parent organizations or parents wanting their schools to do that. So I'm hoping, what call me, email, whatever. I'll meet with whoever to help them out. But not a lot of support one way or the other, quite honestly. But I'm anticipating people wanting to move in this direction and school districts having to one way or the other.
Just something you just said brings up another question from Aaron. Um, what was the reaction from your network of superintendents in your county or surrounding area when you announced these changes? I'm curious, like what those conversations looked like. Obviously, not asking you to name any names, but was it curiosity? Was it surprise? Would love to hear more.
Yeah, I think on our end, it was more curiosity.
Mhm.
We've got a nice learning group. We do it by county in New Jersey, get together monthly. And as Greg noted, you really want to be learning leaders. So it's all about curiosity, exploration, a lot of questions.
Did you get the sense that there are other districts nearby considering similar changes?
Yeah, yeah. I think as Greg noted, I think they're hearing it from their families, to be honest.
I did not hear from my colleagues on this front.
Interesting. Okay.
We're gonna chalk that up to the fact that everything happens on the East Coast and the West Coast first, and then slowly makes its way into the center of, the Midwest and then the center of the country. That's how I will look at it, since we are firmly in the Midwest in
I was a
Pittsburgh.
little shocked to hear that Colorado question because Colorado, to me, is one of the most progressive states out there in regards to education. I often use them as a model in a lot of the stuff I do. So I was a little shocked to hear that.
Well, there might be a few schools in the state, I'm sure, that are doing some good work. Um, Alex, did you have another? One of the things that oh wait, what did it let me just it's hard to read all of them. We have some good ones. Okay. I mean, Alex, did you have any that you wanted to definitely ask? Because
Yeah,
I could.
I guess I was just curious. So at Canon Mac, they've eliminated devices in K to 2. I know the AFT came out in support of this. I know there is now actually, as of today, I think there is a memo that legislation could be introduced calling for something similar for all schools in the state. Mr. Bing, is that something that you have considered? I don't think it's on the books for you in South Orange Maplewood right now, but is that something that you're thinking about for the future?
We are, and we're lucky enough at our monthly county superintendent meeting, we have one of our senators who sits in on all our meetings. So we have a good
Um,
connection to what's happening at the state level, and then also when we have some ideas or tell her our feet on the ground stories, she's willing to do some work for us in Trenton. So we've got that communication channel set up. But yeah, we one of the main messages I've been giving our folks is just to stay open.
Mm.
Right? Lately we're a town of really brave speakers. I mean, our kids are great at advocating. But I think as a society, we really need to build our courageous listening a little more. So, I love brave speakers, but I also love courageous listeners. So, we're trying to push that messaging as we move forward, especially with our administration and then our senior leadership team, to stay open, right? When a parent comes to you or a teacher who has a colleague in another district or maybe in another state who's doing something around this issue that's innovative, let's hear it. Let's discuss it.
I'm gonna ask this next one that just came in actually because it was an earlier question that we had prepared but we didn't get to. This is from Jerry. How do you feel about the hourly restrictions that are being proposed or adopted by other states or large school districts? I know that this is really coming a lot out of LAUSD, even though there are no research studies that discuss specific time limits. And the reason I want to bring this up and ask this one is because we didn't get to talk about what your districts or what you are doing in terms of like tech ed education, like the things about, typing or coding or whatever, other things that students do need to learn, and we do feel that it's important for them to learn. And I mean, if you are joining us and you are a little bit deeper in these issues, I think we all know the amazing line of students need to learn how to use computers and technology, but not need to learn
Oh
through
no.
computer and technology. So I'd love to know what you feel about that.
We are in the midst of those conversations. We are looking to put in screen time limits in our
Oh,
district.
okay.
And we've been researching what a lot of these states have been doing. And that's one of the objectives of our committee is to establish some screen time limits in the classroom. And I think Greg noted this earlier, and I've seen it as a father, I've seen it as a professional educator. To me, there's a very strong connection between screen time and mental health. There just is. Um, Not only are numbers on the rise nationally, but I can tell you from our district perspective, we're seeing a significant increase in mental health issues amongst our students. And I do tie some of that into screen time, social media, EdTech companies. The fact that these companies are looking at kids as consumers and want their attention right away and will do anything for it. It is having an impact on mental health. That's the bottom line. You don't have to be a psychiatrist to figure that out.
I think an important point to make is not all screen times equal or the same, right? So when we're talking about screen time, what's occurring in the screen time, I see a question here. Is this going to include smart boards? Like if we're working together as a class and we're engaging together as a class, the teacher and students, and there's something on the smart board, that is not the same as sticking a channel from a Chromebook with a gamified learning app where things are flashing in front of them really quick, or really going through quick videos one after another. Totally different. So I think when we're talking about screen time limits and time and timing that, I think it's, am I going to limit the screen time in a tech ed classroom where they're actually learning how to program? No, that shouldn't be part of it. But I would advocate to put limits on if you're going to, which we're not, but if you're going to use one of these ed tech programs, Reflex Math, IXL, etc. In that regard, then you should put limits on it if you're going to have it in your schools.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
we
not all
started.
created equally.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same as being in the house too. If you say, okay, we're going to have screen time limits in the house, if you're all huddled around one television, you're watching a Disney show or something, you're talking about the show, totally different than mom on her screen, dad's on her screen, Johnny's on her screen, Katie's on their screen, and no one's socializing and talking. That's a problem, right? That's a problem. Not if we're huddled together and watching a movie together, watching a 2 hour movie, totally different than someone watching YouTube shorts, right?
Yeah, we started with our unstructured times. Our lunch and recess, we were noting that kids were bringing their Chromebooks and gaming. Nobody was speaking to each other at lunch tables. All the Chromebooks were up. That was one of the first places we started. We sent out a memo saying no Chromebooks, no smartphones in lunch or recess, and then we moved that into unstructured time in the classrooms. Right, if there's free time, the kids should not be jumping on a Chromebook. There should be activities where they're collaborating and doing project-based learning and things of that nature. So we started with unstructured time. But yeah, when it does come to the EdTech platforms, that's the screen time we're speaking about.
It's interesting because I think, we have a lot of parents that rightfully so feel frustrated that so much of this energy and movement right now is in that elementary phase. And I think that that's where there are more parents that want to push right now. So for everybody in leading middle schools, watch out, everyone's coming soon. But I think, we do have high school parents that do feel frustrated because they're like, well, wait a minute, it's not like the need to always be on the Chromebook just goes away once you get to ninth grade. But to your point, if you make it part of your culture in your building that the downtime, the unstructured time is not technology time, and then you the instruction and the work then ultimately has to be more pencil paper collaborative, not on the technology, because then if you do have the unstructured time and the kids do want to be working together on something, it's interesting how that really just lends itself to each other. um so it's nice to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, I think from what we're seeing and surveying our students, we just finished a pretty comprehensive AP survey for our students, and 90% of our AP kids at the high school level didn't want more time on technology. They wanted more time for deep conversation and debate. That's
Hmm.
what they wanted. So that's what our professional development has been around for our teachers. How to be a coach, how to be a facilitator, how to ask high order thinking questions that really push debate and conversation. I think you'll find that honestly K through 12 if you're really focusing on the pedagogy, as Greg noted, because good pedagogy is about student-to-student conversation, debate, small group cooperative learning, project-based learning. That's what it's about. And I think you're seeing more and more schools moving in that direction and putting the blinders on and just really focusing on good, solid pedagogy.
That's really great to hear that that's what students are asking for. I've heard that anecdotally from a couple of other local districts. They asked students in a student survey, like, what are your thoughts on all of this? And students said, please, less time on screens, more debate. And I love that that's where professional development is leaning. Um, I'd love to hear, what are you hearing from your students, if anything, on this, Dr. Taranto, especially at the high school level?
Um, as far as our recent stance, well, it's not really much of a recent stance. Like I shared earlier, if I walk around the high school or one of our buildings, you're not going to see a lot of kids you know, on tech while a teacher's teaching. It's just not that. It's not part of it. We've been reducing it. I mean, you have it, and we're going to be making an effort to emphasize or scaling back. But our teachers, having presented in front of them and talking about this topic before, it's not new. They understand our approach to this and they understand why. So, and I think our kids aren't used to being on tech all the time while in the classroom. Now the phone's different issue. Pennsylvania hopefully is going to get that across the
I'm
line
not there
there.
yet, but
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. So the high school students definitely don't want to lose their phones. That's definitely a hot topic when I go in high school classrooms. They see me as a phone police. I'm going to take their phones away from them. But as far as Chromebooks and things like that, they're not super attached to that in the classroom per se.
Yeah, New Jersey passed a smartphone about 6 months ago. Governor signed off on it before he left office. We're a yonder packet district, so from really ninth and above, they have their cell phones, but they have to put it in the magnetic packets. Only grade level that doesn't is 12th grade. We're really trying to experiment with them to see if there's some self-discipline and things of that nature when it comes to the cell phones, to the smartphones. But 9 through 12, 9 through 11, we're using the magnetic packets right now.
How is that going so far? Because that is, you're in a big district and presumably there are mixed grade level classes.
Yep. So our state, well, from a fiscal standpoint, our state put out a grant. So we were able to get a lot of it through that grant. But as Greg noted, I don't have high school kids coming up to me, hugging me, thanking me for taking away, taking
But
away the
are the 12th
smartphones.
graders able to like manage it better? I mean, I really do think that an 18-year-old should be able to manage it a little bit better than a a 14-year-old. And I'm assuming that since the building school culture is not to have your phone out, they're most are probably respectful of that.
Yep, we are, but there's a lot of pushback. Yeah,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
maybe they
especially
need
at
the
the high
yonder pouches too.
yeah, especially at the high school level. There's a lot of student pushback in regards to smartphones.
I mean,
So there, oh,
that's
go
a whole
ahead.
different topic. I'm sorry, but I mean, smartphones, you're talking about an addiction here. And it doesn't matter what the student, I mean, it's a straight up addiction. Dopamine, same as a gambling addiction. It's the same mechanism there. So they're addicted, and that addiction is going to drive them. So do they have the discipline if they're addicted? It's hard when you're addicted to something, and they are addicted, as most adults are addicted to their phones too. So I welcome the our state. Hopefully they get it across the line because we need that. Because without that, I don't think we'd be able to do as a district. We'd get too much pushback from our parents, quite honestly, and our students. Now we're phone free K through 8. Just the high school allows phones, and that's it in a cafeteria or study hall. Classrooms, they can't have them out on their person. But again, you look at the research there, and there's a number of studies that show you that the closer the phone is to the student, the lower its achievement is. If the phone's out on the desk, turned over, they've done studies. If it's in the backpack, or if it's totally out of the classroom. Totally out of classroom, mind's totally off it. Mind is then on
Yep.
learning. They learn the most. Phones in the backpack, it's half and half. Phones out on the desk, it's almost all their attention is on the phone because it's like what's on there next. It's so close to me. I got it. It's an addiction.
Yeah, we had to transition to signal blocking packets because what we noticed, hearing the buzzing in the Yonder packs, first
Oh,
generation
right.
Yonder packs, yeah, big distraction. So we made a shift to to a different company that also provides signal blocking in those packs. Um, we're rolling that out next year, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
The things that you never thought you would have to think about, right? 10 years ago. There are two more questions that I do want to hope we have like 5 more minutes, but I do want to get to one. This one is about, so from a parent that saying, we have parents on board. I can say firsthand, I know it is like a pretty robust group of people. And any suggestions for order of operations for a superintendent who's just not interested in the research and a school board that sees its role as greasing the wheels for admin rather than oversight? Kind of a loaded question, but I think I do want to address it because I think a lot of parents are in this position, which is what I was trying to say earlier too. I mean, um,
I
they're
always
really
like
buying the.
I like when people start off with, "Can we partner?" I love the word partner. Can we partner? That's the verbiage is important. It really is. And I don't want to speak for Greg, but I field hundreds of emails a day. If something's up to my office, it's probably not something good, and we're dealing with that. But when somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I'm wondering if you want to partner on this," or "We're collaborative," that words are important. Words mean a lot. When you send that email, put some key words in there like partner, like collaborate. It goes a long way. You'd be surprised.
I would I would just ask, what's the reasoning? Can we talk about this? Jason said, can we partner on this? What's the reasoning why we have to be all digital or all Chromebooks? Like, can you explain? I'm not understanding this. Can you point me to what or why, what the research says? Because I can point you towards some research and we can work together. We can compare notes and to make sure they're prepared and ready and they have it. There's plenty out there that would support less tech versus more tech.
I'd also start a book study. I've had some PTOs that start book studies.
You know,
Hattie was one, the Angst Generation was
yeah.
one of those, and a few others.
Digital delusion is a
Yep,
great one for
yep,
schools.
and that really starts the conversation.
It's great to hear.
I wanted to ask Aaron's, Alex, because I think this is another big piece of it. And
Please.
you both talked about it briefly, but I'd like if you can share a little bit more. How are you training your own teachers about these issues? For those of us steeped in these issues, some of this is super obvious, but obviously for many people, some of whom are teachers, they haven't really thought about this before, or it's just not on their radar. It's not in their algorithm. So the content that they're getting is none of this. I think it's also probably it's pedagogy, right? But it's also just the brain science around kids and screens and the potential harms of excessive screen use. And yes, definitely not maybe what's happening in school, but just as humans, right? And what's happening to society.
As I shared, I did a presentation in front of the entire faculty and staff on influences on brain health. And we hit up big on screen time and social media, talk about the science, dopamine, chemistry, how that changes, why that changes. So spent a lot of time on that, articles, and then really how I reach my teachers. I can't reach the teachers, honestly, but my principals can reach their teachers. So it's making sure my principals are on board, understand this is what we're talking about, why we're talking about, and then them taking it into their buildings and reinforcing that because they're the ones that should be in the classrooms every single day and sharing articles. Or if I share an article, I'll share information or my take on that article. I just don't push something out, but I'll say, hey, this is why this works, and this is my take on it. And I expect my principals to do the same thing with them with their teachers. I got to be a learning leader. My principals have to be learning leaders, and therefore they have to make sure their teachers are learning because you're right. I mean, they're they're not always going to be out in front on these topics. And if this is important for us and this is a focus area, then we have to make sure our teachers understand what it is and why we're doing it.
Yeah, and Greg knows this. Our teachers are up to their knees. I mean, the things on a teacher's plate nowadays is insane. So, how we present it and making sure we get across the why is pretty important. So they just don't think it's another thing added on to what they already have to do. So federal mandated, state mandated, it's just not another thing. And starting with your building leadership is probably the key.
Just wanted to a quick follow-up on the Hattie book. If you have the title, I think someone from the chat is writing in to ask, or if you have a specific one you'd recommend.
Well, John had, well, he does have books, but he has just, you could just type in Google his name and you'll see his articles.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got one really popular book. So for those of you, I don't understand ed lingo, John Hattie took everybody's research and synthesized it and analyzed it in regards to what was the most effective strategies out of thousands of research, and put it all in one book. And many districts around the country utilize his work. And it is heavy ed lingo. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not a quick read, but a lot of school districts utilize his work and strategies in the classroom.
And again, another one I would recommend is Ed Rosenshine. He has an article called The 10 Principles of Instruction. That's probably easier to understand and for parents. So I'd highly recommend that article.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we are
At 9:30.
We are very much not wanting to keep you any later. You've given
Thank you
us
so much.
time. Thank you. We're so grateful that you were able to spend 90 minutes of your time with us in the summer. You should really, hopefully, get some good rest and relaxation in after, I'm sure, a very, very busy school year. I know you said your June board meeting is tomorrow night, Mr. Bing, so I hope afterwards you'll be able to take a big, deep breath. But we just really appreciate your time.
Greg, have a restful summer. I'll speak to you.
Yeah, Jason,
Thank
I'd
you
like to touch
both.
base with you and Kristen and Alex. Thank you for inviting us. This has been great. Appreciate everyone attending, and feel free to reach out to me, email me if you want, or I'm on Instagram and all that fun stuff too.
Thank you.
Great.
You
Thank
all,
you so much.
And
Bye.
everyone watching, we'll send out a follow-up email with the recording and some resources mentioned, including policies, communications from both of these districts, in case you'd like to review them and see what these changes have looked like. So we'll be in touch, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.